here's a strange topic for a philosophy class. How can I be happy? What do I need to have a satisfying and happy life? Now, when you think about this, right, I have to cover it because nobody else is. If you were to think of your list of goals, right, every day or year by year or long term, where would you put making myself and my loved ones satisfied and happy? Where would that go on your list of goals, right, for any period of your life? Well, I'm assuming it's right near the top. But then I have to ask the question, how often do you spend time thinking about that or planning it directly? Do you read books about this? Do you take classes, more importantly, about this? You're going to school, and you've gone to school for most of your life in some form. And how much time did you spend really thinking and working on how can I be happy? You don't. So I have to cover it, right? I'll do everything. My approach with this will be what you could call a efficiency expert. So let's say you have a little business or a big business, it wouldn't matter, and you call in an efficiency expert, right? Something is not going right or you want to do better, right? You want to be more efficient, more successful at your goals. Well, if you're a decent efficiency expert, you don't just come in and say, okay, I know what you're after and here's how we'll do it. No, you would have to sit there with the people who are the real stakeholders of the company and say, what do you want this company to do? You can't be efficient unless you know what the goals are. And then you would come in and maybe they would say, oh, I just want profits. They're some kind of terrible person, right? Or maybe they say, I want my employees to be loyal, or I want my employees to be happy. I want my customers to be satisfied. I want our community to really like our company, whatever it is. And so the efficiency expert would come in and say, okay, well, here are your goals. This is what you told me. Let's make sure we have these right. And now let me look at your operations, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and show you which things you need to do better at, which things you need to just get rid of. If you want happy employees, then get rid of this. This is stupid. All right, well, so that's what I'm going to do. We are going to start by coming up with a list of goals. Then, for the next classes, we are going to see how you're going about doing them and what you need to change to get better at being happy and satisfied in your life. All right, so this first phase is trying to figure out what our goals are and what our psychology and behavior have to do with it. Okay, so, and for the first phase of finding out what the goals are, we're going to go at two levels. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to be a reverse engineering Martian anthropologist. What does this mean? Reverse engineering is when you look at something and figure out what it's for, right? Why do they do this? What is this piece of technology for? And then try to figure out what the real goals are, right? From you and just looking at how you live your lives. So what we'll do first is we'll first say, okay, what are the kinds of things that seem to make a difference for your happiness in the world? And we want to start at a very mundane, everyday level and just think about, here's what I do that makes a difference in my happiness. Here is something that if I don't do it or don't have this, right, I will be sad. And then we will go to a more advanced level and talk about what are the psychological and emotional needs that those things are for. Right, so we're trying to come up with this fairly short list, if we could do it, of direct goals that make the most difference for our happiness and satisfaction in life. I think the best way to do this is to imagine we're in front of a whiteboard and we're all just shouting things at me about what are the things in your life that make a big difference for your happiness and satisfaction. All right, so let's do that. Forgive my terrible writing, but let's go to the board and have an open discussion. And what I'm going to hope is that as I'm writing things down, you are shouting these same things at me, saying, this is what you need to put on the board, this makes a difference for my happiness. And then again, then we'll go to the second level and try to figure out, why do we do those things? What are the key psychological and social, emotional things that we're actually trying to meet? Good? All right, let's do it. So start shouting things at your monitor, right? Let's think, what would we say? All right, so right away I would say, oh, I need my dogs. Now, of course, you would say, okay, well, let's call that pets, right? We're going to be real general. There will be plenty of things that will appear on here that you will say, well, I don't do exactly that, but here's the related thing I use, right? So dogs and pets, what would you say? Okay, let's be more normal. We need friends. What else? Let's see. We need family. And so what I'll do is I'll kind of group things together as we're talking about them, and then you just keep shouting. Oh, you would say, I need nature, right? I need to be outside. Okay, and then some of you are more cruel and jaded. You would say, oh, no, all I need is money, right? I need a job. What do you need? Then you'd say, no, right? This is what I do on Instagram the whole time while I'm at home. I just check out fashion. Okay, let's say I check out art. Now, keep shouting things at me. Okay, maybe you mean music. Now, notice, of course, whenever we're talking about these things, different people meet these needs in different ways. We're just looking at all sorts of things, and then someone would say, oh, I don't use fashion, I use art. That's fine. Good? Okay, keep going. Let's see. What I'm going to keep doing is I'm going to keep imagining I'm a Martian anthropologist, and I'm looking and seeing what you are doing. And so I will just look, and most of these things you would affirm that, oh yeah, I forgot, I do need that. Let's see, sports and competition. That seems big in your Earth as I travel from Mars. That seems to be important to you. Let's think, what else do we see? Oh, drugs. You guys are really into your pot and your alcohol. That seems to make a big difference. Seems like when you can't be on drugs that you're not as happy. We could talk about why that is. Maybe it's because you can't express yourself. Oh, but there we go. How do we express ourselves, right? Some of you do writing. Some of you do painting or drawing. Good, we won't put them all. What else seems important to you? If I was to study you, oh, your tattoos, right? It's amazing that they let me move to this state and I don't have tattoos, right? Really weird. Don't tell anybody. Please, if the state asks you, tell them I have tons of tattoos, right? They're just hidden. What else? Oh, of course, right? Cell phones. Right now, you probably checked your cell phone 3 times just since we started this little drawing thing. Well, and of course, what does that mean? That means social media. Now, of course, that probably connects to friends and family. Maybe it connects to how you express yourself or something like this, right? Now, what you find is when something is really ubiquitous in a society or in a generation, it means either one of 2 things. It either means that this thing is such a good piece of tech because it meets many of our needs, or it means that this piece of tech is really good at meeting a need that the society is really bad at meeting. I think it's more of the latter, right? But I think cell phones are an efficient way to meet a lot of these needs. Oh, here, let's go closer to me. Really don't get a lot of joy out of a cell phone, but I do use video games. Those are fun, right? That seems ubiquitous in your society. I mean, I'm a Martian. I don't know what video games are. You guys are really into video games. What else are you into? Let's think. Oh, shoes. Hair. Makeup, right? Eyebrows, right? You're into eyebrows right now. I don't get that. But we could say all sorts of things. Clothing, brand name clothing, right? That's fine. Let's think, what else do we have? Oh, we're kind of missing a whole segment of your lives, right? Let's call it spirituality. Now, whenever we talk about this, you're going to hate whatever word I use, so please forgive it, because we can call this faith, we can call this God, right? We can call this church. Whatever it is, though, right? Whether it's meditation, or maybe this has to do with outside of nature, but it does seem to be important, some transcendent sense. What else do we need? Oh, here, let's... Maybe it's not just money or a job. Maybe it's a career. Maybe it's something that you're going to devote your life to, that you're going to keep getting better at, right? And this is how you'll identify yourselves. That makes sense. So in that sense, are improving ourselves. Sorry, I didn't spell that very well. Learning. Some of you love, like me, books. I have a real book fetish. I love books. What else? Mundane stuff. Being healthy. Part of what need to be outside is, so we'd say being healthy. Right now, right, I'm teaching during the COVID shutdown, right, we need to be safe. Oh, dang, forgetting some important things, right? Sex, we need sex. We need a sense of achievement. Why are things like video games so popular? I think they replace our need for achievement. Our sense of, I'm at this level, I'm this good at this game. I think we really need that, right? We need this sense of having or building skill, right? Achieving short-term and long-term goals, things like this. Let's think. We could keep going. Security, right? That seems to be important. There's a lot of guns in our country. What do they say? Not everyone that has guns, but the people that have them have a ton of them, right? Security seems to be good. Let's think. Have we forgotten anything? But I think we did a pretty good job. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to go from the everyday life sort of things that seem to make a difference for our happiness. Again, I'm looking over our ugly board. I think we did good, right? Please scream at me right now if I forgot something obvious, right? Again, I'm not the best Martian anthropologist, but all right. Now what we want to do is we want to look at the things that make a difference for our happiness and start to group things together so we can get to phase 2. Phase 2 is going from the everyday things we use for happiness to the psychological, emotional, or social needs that these are geared for. Again, this is reverse engineering. Why do they do this? What is this stuff for? All right, so now we can start to kind of group things together. We can say, all right, we have stuff like this. Let me just start circling things, right? Career, learning, things like that. And we could say these fit a need. Now, I am just going to pick a word for this, right? We'll give a few synonyms. If you hate the word for it, please forgive me. Come up with your own word for it, right? But I will say that these things are something like goals, right, for a bigger need. These things are something like our need for success or purpose. Or here, a good general name for it would be meaning. Something that gives us a sense of meaning. Something that, is an overarching sense of what it's all about. Good? Okay, that seems good. Then we have things like dogs and pets. Sorry, I've heard of things called cats, but they're not real. Good. We can go like this, right? Maybe even security would get in there. What else? This is probably partly what cell phones and social media are about, but that'll overlap with something else. And we'll call this our need for love or friendship or companionship. Again, I'm trying to be as general as I can so a lot of things can fit under it. Good? So there's a need. What else do we have? Now, there's another sense, right? Like cell phones and social media aren't always about this thing. Now, we would say that achievement and skill, that's probably over here with goals and purpose. But there's a social nature to this. I mean, we don't just want to achieve things. We need other people to approve of us, right? So that's another sense. And notice, I would say that it's similar to love and companionship, but it's wider. Love and companionship can be a very small set of relationships, right? Here we can talk, let's do a quick tangent, about how men and women differ statistically. This isn't divided right across the board. Plenty of men are more like women. I hope I am. Plenty of women are more like men in this way. But notice, love and companionship can be met by some relationships, but some men are different than women in the sense that they need their sense of achievement or success to be recognized often on a wider scale. For instance, I know my wife. If there are a handful of people that think she's a good person, a good writer, a good mother, she's good. Where me, needy male that I am, I often need to feel that more people think I'm doing a good job as a teacher or a citizen, right? And so my wife, because she really knows how to be married to me, will often lie about how many people think I'm a good teacher, right? She'll say, oh, I was at the store and the person that helped me recognized my last name and told me what a great teacher you are. Half the time she's just making up those stories, but she knows my need for this next thing, right? What can we call it? Let's call it a sense of, I'm running out of room, right? Let's call it, here, I hope this can be seen. We'll call this a sense of recognition. If you're a tough guy, you would say this is respect, right? I need respect, or I need acceptance. Good. Oh, this is where we go back to what we were talking about earlier. Hell is other people, right? We need the respect and acceptance of others. We need to feel like they are recognizing us for who we are. And so here's where you would put things like, oh, I can't fit anymore. Our social identity. We need not just our mom to say we're a good person. We need a bunch of people on social media or on a video game board to say, wow, you're really good at Rocket League or whatever you're into. Good? All right, let's see what's missing. Oh, then we've got this whole sense of these artistic sorts of things, writing and painting. Now that's a pretty easy one. I think you'll agree if I call those expression. Good. Self-expression and need for creativity, of course. We put those words in there, right? We need to, let me try to define this in a way. We need to be able to say and do what we think and feel. This is why I would think there is a real need for things like, now notice, so go to something like tattoos. What are tattoos doing? They're giving you a sense of a social identity, but they're also giving you a sense of creativity and expression, right? Writing and painting are good at this. What would you say? Oh, I would say drugs might be one of these things where if you have a really kind of repressed sense of expression. Now, notice. How often do you get to do and say what you think and feel at your work or in your regular classes or something like this? Almost never. I think this is a lot of what drugs are. Oh, now, of course, we're missing some of the negative stuff, right? We need things like distraction. We need a sense of escape. Now, money. So now I'm going to do something weird. I am going to say, right, so I'm going to box this one. And this is where, for the first time, I think I might be going beyond what you want me to do, right? So in our little boxes are our larger goals, right? Our psychological, social needs. Here is where I would say that a lot of the things that we consider needs are negative needs. So here is where I would put things like money, our need for being healthy, our need for being safe. I think these would count as negative needs. Let me explain. These are needs where having them is needed, but we only miss them if there's not enough. Having more of them doesn't make you more happy. I mean, you would say having more money makes me more happy, but actually the money is just a tool for meeting other things. So it's only when you don't have enough of it that your happiness is really stretched. So we would say it's a negative need. Being more and more healthy doesn't make you more and more happy, but if you're not healthy, it's really hard to be happy. Think of this for those of you who study psychology. Think of developmental psychology. If a child doesn't have their need for, say, safety met, then they can't go on and achieve their more sophisticated needs. This is where I might start to disagree just slightly with Maslow. His list is brilliant, but I don't think it's this whole hierarchy. I think there's a baseline of, say, negative needs, right? Now, of course, what didn't we talk about at all? We didn't talk about even more mundane needs, our physiological needs, but of course, those are on there. That's one of the few, right? So physiological, fancy word, meaning our biological needs. Of course, some of you are probably screaming at me saying, oh, Jeff, what an affluent bastard you are. Do you realize a lot of people don't have their basic needs for food and sleep and safety? Safety maybe is a negative need, but basic physiological needs, of course. I just didn't talk about those because those are one of the few needs that you actually are taught about in school, right? You do know people do always pull you aside and say, you need water, you need sleep. Obvious, so we don't need to talk about those in this class, but those, of course, are a given. But so come back to this. These negative needs. Do we need distraction? No. We need distraction when our other needs aren't going well. If the other needs are going great, we don't need escapist literature, right? It's fun, but it's not a need. So, for example, I would say these sorts of things are negative needs. Drugs are something you need when happiness isn't going well, or let's say I need to get drunk or I need to get high on weed because that's the only time I get to express myself. Oh, fine, makes sense. But again, a negative need. how did we do? I think this went well. It's hideously ugly. But let's try this, okay? So let me look at my disgusting board and try to come up with our basic list, okay? So now, please, I hope you're agreeing with where this has gone. Again, I am imitating what this classroom discussion is like all the time. So this is me giving a list, not just off the top of my head, but of what I hear students say most often. So based on that list, here's what we would have. We would have our baseline, our physiological needs. Please write down biological needs, so forth. Now, again, won't need to talk about that much in the class. We know when those aren't met and we know how to meet them. Good? So don't think we need a lot of work. I will also do what we'll call 0 prime or 0 star. This is baseline as well. And these are our negative needs. These are our needs for things like security, safety, money, right? Distraction. Now, these are things we only need. And they're very important. But they don't make us happier. They just establish a baseline so we can go on and seek out our other needs. What are these other needs? I will just use single words, but please fill in synonyms. Love, companionship, right? A sense of someone caring about you or you getting to care for others. We'll call those all love needs. We'll say we have expression needs, needs for creativity, need just to be able to say and do what we think and feel, right? Those are good things. What else? Then we'll say we have a need for acceptance. Again, plenty of synonyms. A sense of belonging, a sense of acknowledgement, recognition, respect. Those seem to be important. And finally, what do we have? A need for purpose or meaning, right? We'll call it purpose, meaning, a sense of achievement, a sense of goals, something that makes it all worthwhile, right? Good? Now, let's ask a couple philosophical questions about this list. What we want to ask, right? So here's our list. Please write it down. I'm going to refer to this over the next several weeks. These are the things we are trying to achieve. These are our needs. If we can meet these needs, we should be happy. So a couple of philosophical questions, right? So we want to ask if these are what a philosopher would call a necessary set of conditions. That means, are these things needed in order to achieve happiness? To where if one was missing, would happiness be hard to find? So are these necessary conditions for happiness? And I think they are. I think that when you look at your life and you think of when you are sad, when you are dissatisfied, when you are unhappy, I think for the most part, it is because some of these are missing. Now, the baseline, of course, we would say that if these are missing, yes, very hard to be satisfied and happy. We need to achieve these so we can go on to find fulfillment here. But I also think these are also necessary conditions for satisfaction and happiness. Well, if you have no love, you are going to have a hard time being satisfied and happy. The harder thing to achieve, right, would be what's called sufficient conditions for happiness. But I think these are almost there. Good? So we ask this question. So if these are necessary conditions for happiness, that means we need to have these at least partially met to be able to be happy and satisfied. And I think you would agree. These are so good, though, they might even be sufficient conditions. Meaning, if you are sane, right? If you are a sane person and these needs are met, you are very likely a happy, satisfied person. And so, putting these together, we can say, when you look at your life, can you pinpoint these as the key reasons for when you're not happy or the key reasons for when you are? I think our list is that good. All right, I'm back. Now let's try to get technologically ambitious, right? Now, that means for me, we will simply have 2 windows, right? I'll try to draw, and I'll still be here to talk to you because I miss you. Sorry. All right. What we're going to do now is look at what I call Freud 101. Please. When we look at Freud, it is not because he's right about everything. It's just that Freud gives us a model that we're used to. We already, as a society, speak in very Freudian terms, whether you realize it or not. And so we are going to use Freud simply as a picture or a model. It is like when you try to understand an atom and you draw little pictures that look like planets of electrons and a neutron and things like this. It's a picture that helps you understand something. It's not really what the thing looks like. So we will start by drawing you to psychoanalytic scale, right? There you are, your enormous head, and this is probably part of Freud that you've heard of, whether you know this is where it came from or not. We will divide the self, the psyche, right? It's Freud sort of term, into three parts. You've heard of this? The id, the ego, and the superego. Okay? What we are going to do is use this three-part structure of talking about how we get from our thoughts, our needs, right, to our behavior to try to meet our needs that we have. We will use our list we just came up with as our list of needs, right? And Freud, again, just a model, just a metaphor for talking about this, right? Now, does the brain actually look like that? Does it have three parts, right? No, right? Just a metaphor for understanding our thought processes. All right. So we'll start with the id. We will simplify this a little bit, so Freud scholars, don't get mad at me. We're going to simplify it and act like these things do go in order. That you have first the id acting, then the superego gets involved, then the ego checks on what's happening, and then you get the final step, behavior. Simplification, right? But it will be handy for the way we'll want to talk. So first we want to start with the id. The id has a singular job. It is simply rudely screaming your needs at you, right? All the need does is tell you, I need food, I need sex, I need acceptance, whatever these are. And again, we'll use our list of needs. And so we'll use those, right, as we get farther. Remember, we're going to use the examples of food, sex, and acceptance just to give examples of how to apply each of these things. All right, so the id. The id is just telling you when you're hungry, sleepy, so forth. And it doesn't care what you are doing. It is incredibly rude and inappropriate, right? This is why we're going to need the superego. Let me make some room. One key misunderstanding about Freud came from partly because of the first translations of Freud into English. They made a tiny mistake when they were translating the German, and they treated the word drives as if it was the word instincts, right? These can be similar, but this led to a lot of misunderstanding. People read Freud and it says we have a sex instinct and a death instinct. That these are instincts like our reflexes. No, they're not instincts, they're drives. Let me try to explain this. We will do this by comparing ourselves to animals, right? This is a simplification. Please, animal rights people, don't get mad, right? You might think this is very much a simplification. Absolutely guilty. Yes, it is. Animals have instincts and humans have drives. To understand what an instinct is, let's use the little mnemonic device and use the word instructions. If you have an instinct, right, please try this, you also have the instructions for how to meet it. Let's say that more carefully. If you have an instinct, that means there are complex instructions for behavior that will satisfy the need. So let's go for food. If you are a spider and you need food, what do? You make a web and try to catch insects. Now, how do you know how to make a web? Does your mom give you little AutoCAD lessons in architecture for making the very species unique web that you create? No, it's instinct. Now, it would be fascinating to know what a spider is thinking about at this time, but I like to imagine that it's instinctive in the sense that it's thoughtless, and it just happens. Like, I'm hungry, and then all of a sudden I just start spinning a web, right? Brilliant. Now go to humans. A human has drives. What does this mean? It means that we have to use reason and culture to figure out how to meet our needs. Our needs don't come with instructions from behavior. We have a drive toward the goal, and then we need to figure it out. So if a human has a need for food, well, let's try that. Right now, how many of you are hungry? I'm always hungry, right? I always love eating. Now, what do you do about your need for hunger? Now, some of you are answering, and this is not true. You would say, well, you go eat. No, you're a human. So you have all these decisions. What do you do, human being, most of the time when you're hungry? Think about it. You don't eat. You are in class, or you're at work, or you're on a diet or something. And so when you get hungry, you ignore it. If you're an animal, you go find food. If you're a human, you're crazy. A lot of people are bothered by Freud saying, well, when we read Freud, it makes us sound like we're a bunch of psychopaths. Yes, when you look at us in these terms, we are crazy. We don't meet our needs in the most psychologically relevant or rational way. Now, let's say you're actually going after food, right? You're not going to sit there and not eat when you're hungry. You're going to eat. Well, what do? A million things, right? Again, maybe you're on a diet. Maybe I'm just going to eat gummy bears because these are low in fat, right? Maybe you're going to go get fast food or something. Are these very efficient ways to meet your need for hunger? No, they don't meet your need for what healthy sorts of things you need. And by the way, I almost said nutrients there, but that's the wrong way to think about food. Don't think about food as nutrients. Think of it as food, right? If you follow your natural cultural instincts, your natural cultural drives for food, you will get enough nutrients. Eat food, not nutrients, you weirdos. All right, sidebar, right? What are Americans? The most health-obsessed nation in the world that is the most unhealthy nation in the world. We are obsessed about health, but are incredibly unhealthy because we don't eat food. Anyway, let's try another one. Let's try sex. Let's say you're a salmon and you need sex. What do? Some of you know. You swim upstream, right, to a particular location. Just up any stream? No. You find the particular spawning ground where you were spawned. How do you find it? GPS? Cell phone? Right? No. It's instinct. You know exactly where to go and you find your spawning ground and mate there. If you're a baboon, how do you meet your need for sex? Again, you have instructions. You know exactly who the alpha male is, what harem you can go to. And for a lot of monkeys, there's even unique smells, even looks, right? Do you know that the women that are ready, their butts shine pink? Oh my gosh. How much better off would humans be if we had instincts, right? Think of this need for sex. You'd have an internalized GPS knowing exactly which bar to go to find the women that are ready. And then you would just need to smell and look around for the glowing pink women, right? And they are the skanky ones that are ready. Oh my gosh, it would save you so much time. You wouldn't have to buy a sports car and go to the gym. You know where to go and you know which women are ready. Sorry. Good. Now we can ask, what about the need for acceptance? But animals don't really need this, right? So we'll have to put that one off for a little bit. All right. So that's the id. So now the superego. The superego is simply, and we'll use Freud's terms and update a little bit, is the internalized teaching of authority about what is appropriate behavior for meeting your needs. So this is what you could easily call conscience, right? Your superego is your conscience, but if we're using Freud's model, it is internalized teachings. In Freud's day, it would say this is the internalized teachings of most of all your parents and then religious figures, right? They told you what is right and wrong. Nowadays, the superego is more multifarious, right? Your superego might come from your parents, it might come from your culture, it might come from social media or friends or socialization. Good, but either way, it's what are appropriate ways to meet your needs. And so the id is screaming at you, and then the superego is saying, that's wrong, right? Don't do that. This is appropriate. All right, so let's try our examples. So you have a need for food. Good, right? Now, for most people, your superego is really confusing about what food is appropriate, but some things are obvious. So, for example, my id is saying, Jeff, you need food. And there I see a wounded dog, right? That dog looks like easy to catch, right? And I have a barbecue, I can easily cook it. Is that right? No, right? Culturally, we would say, no, don't do that. But notice, if you were in another country, you're in Vietnam, let's say, then a dog is okay according to your superego. If you're in India, cow, no. But you people, cows, yes. Now, I'm fairly pretty thoroughly vegetarian. I'll eat meat a little bit every once in a while when I'm eating a cultural meal that requires it. But, so notice, we can also adapt the teachings of the superego. For instance, I have a very different superego than my culture does. I almost never eat cow, almost never eat chicken, almost never eat pork, right? I just don't think those things are good in the sense of good for sharing resources with other people. They just take up too many resources. I'm also worried about hurting animals, so forth. I am also worried about things like pathogens that are spread with meat, cough, cough, COVID, right? Anyway, my superego tells me eat these certain things. Good. Now let's try sex. Your id says you need sex. Good. And it says it in the most inappropriate ways, especially if you're a, say, 17-year-old boy. Oh my gosh, school is so rough, right? Your id is constantly screaming sex at you, right? Oh, that's my English teacher, right? Whatever. Anyway, drives are confusing. So you are not lucky enough to be a salmon or a baboon and you need sex. Now, so first, what do? Well, in the first sense, notice it's a lot like food, right? In that you don't do anything. But notice how weird it gets. Again, Freud thinks we have a drive for sex. That's absolutely true, and it's more true today based on evolution and evolutionary psychology, right, than in his day, right? So don't think he's crazy. He's right. Now, you're not a salmon or a baboon, and so what do? Like food? Nothing, right? You need sex, you do nothing about it. Maybe you even have religious teachings in your superego that tells you sex is naughty, you shouldn't want sex. If you masturbate, you're going to hell. And, what if you want someone of the same sex? What if you happen to be gay? Well, now you're just going straight to hell, and who you are is terrible. We're crazy, right? You notice how crazy and psychotic that turns us into. Something that you want is wrong and bad, no matter how natural it is. Weird superego. So the superego tells us inappropriate. All right, so let's say that I am a little confused in my superego and I am on my farm in Wales, right? And I look over and Flossie sure has a shiny coat this year. Look at those hindquarters. Flossie's a sheep, right? Sorry. Can I have sex with Flossie? No, of course not. Culturally inappropriate. You're a disgusting weirdo. Put away your Velcro gloves, right? That is not right. I'm so sorry. Okay, good. Clear. Superego gives us the appropriate and inappropriate ways to meet all of our needs. Ego. The ego's job is very straightforward. The ego's job is, now by ego is just I, or the self, right, in Greek. And this is simply your ability to apply reason to meet your needs. And so the ego's job is to apply the reality principle. It is simply your last chance to make sure you're not being insane. To make sure the thing that you are seeking to use to meet your needs is actually real, right? Here's your metaphysical sense. This is the most basic sense of sanity. To be insane is to be completely out of touch with the reality principle. All right, so let's try this. We now need to apply reality when we go to meet our needs. Let's go back to our examples. Okay? So, food. My id says, I'm hungry, I need food. My superego, now mine, says, find things that are vegetarian, plant-based, find things that don't mistreat humans in their creation and don't mistreat animals in their creation. And then let's say my buddy hands me a Cliff Bar. Good. And my buddy says, hey, this meets all the requirements. I'm a vegan. Let's say he's a vegan. And so, this is absolutely great. I guess it's manufactured in an ethical way. Great. So he hands me a Cliff Bar. Problem, right? Id, I'm hungry, superego, Cliff Bar's appropriate. Ego says, stop. Have you seen a lot of Cliff Bars? They look like doo-doo, right? And they smell like doo-doo. So I think my buddy is playing a prank on me. My ego is stopping me from eating the Cliff Bar because in reality that might be Duke's, right? Okay, sorry. Good? Sex. Id says I need sex. Superego says you can't hump sheep, right? And so, this is fascinating. There was a case, and I bring up this case because it happened near a university I used to teach at, right, Southern California. There was a case where someone was stealing old bicycles. The old 10 speeds that had the metal handlebars that were like curved around, right? You were supposed to lean forward. They've gotten better at making handlebars. But those old steel curvy handlebars, someone was stealing those old bikes. Now, nobody really cared about these bikes. They were just sitting in people's garages or side yards. But pretty soon, the police in the area were realizing that there were a bunch of these thefts, hundreds in fact. Well, they ended up finding the guy, and what was it? He just had hundreds of these handlebars filling his garage, and they were his sexual companions. I love alliteration, so let's call it the humping handlebars person. He was humping these handlebars as sex companions. Now, what would we say? We would say his id said he needs sex. His superego didn't tell him that handlebars are inappropriate sexual companions. But at the very least, we would say, you're a psycho, dude. Your ego is failing as well. In reality, those can't meet your needs for sex. I mean, think of the chafing, you guys. This poor guy, right? Reality principle completely failed. He was humping handlebars to meet his need for sex. Clear, right? Now, let's go one step farther and apply the need for acceptance, right? Let's go to our final example, acceptance. Your id says you need acceptance, right? I need to feel like I belong. I need to be respected. I need recognition. I need my social identity to be affirmed. Happens, screams at us all the time that we need this. Your superego gives you almost no advice. Your superego says, you're on your own here. Let's look around culture and try to figure out what's appropriate or not, because we don't know what we're doing with this need. And so what do? You buy some shoes, you get a boob job, you get a tattoo, you try to get good at sports, you get a sports car, right? What do? You're completely out of touch with the reality principle. If you buy shoes to get acceptance, how does that get you acceptance? You simply bought shoes. Now, the person who made the shoes, when they see you like them, feels acceptance. But why would you feel acceptance by having shoes and someone else saying, hey bro, cool shoes. Thanks, I just bought them. They don't give me a sense of acceptance. It's completely artificial and fake. I am now neurotic. So let's talk finally. When we talk about behavior, now we can see why some people are psychotic, because their behavior is completely out of touch with reality. Now let's talk about a kind of partial loss of sanity called neuroses. Now we can understand. How many of you are hand washers and door lockers? Meaning you wash your hands even though they're clean. Now, during COVID pandemic, washing your hands continually makes sense. But for others of you, you were doing this already. You were using Purell all the time, right? Because your hands just couldn't clean enough. And then the door lockers. How many of you lock a door and you know it's already locked? You're heading to bed, you check the door again, right? You know it's locked and you just relock it. Now notice what's happening. In both cases, your need for security, a negative need, is overcoming your ability to keep track of reality. You know where the door is locked, you know your hands were clean enough, but you wash them again, you lock it again, because you're neurotic. You're slightly out of touch with reality in your drive to feel secure. Now I have a handy word I can call you neurotic. All right, now we are ready to read from.